She texted me, "You've always been my one," but I found her flight to a beach with him. My fingers shook as I stared at the message on my screen. I had to read it 3 times before I could even begin to process the words. The words, "You've always been my one," felt like a cruel punch to the gut, especially after what I had just discovered. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My chest felt hollow, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about her, about us, just shattered. It wasn't the first time I'd had doubts, but this felt like the final confirmation. I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at my phone in disbelief. The flight details were still pulled up on the browser, the confirmation number there in black and white. She had booked a flight 2 weeks ago for a weekend getaway with him. Her ex. The guy I'd always had this strange, gnawing feeling about, but she swore to me time and time again that he was just a friend and that nothing had ever happened between them. She even insisted that I was the only one for her. But this was too much. How could I ignore this? How could I still believe that lie? I felt my stomach twist into a tight knot as I recalled the conversation we'd had that morning, where she had held me close, kissed me on the cheek, and told me how lucky she was to have me. She'd looked at me with such warmth, such sincerity. "You've always been my one," she'd said. She couldn't have been more convincing, and yet here I was, standing in the living room, trying to keep my hand from shaking as I tried to wrap my head around what I had just discovered. I wanted to scream, to call her and confront her right then and there. But part of me wanted to wait. I didn't want to make an impulsive decision out of hurt. I needed to think, to understand what this all meant before I said something I couldn't take back. My heart was beating so loudly in my chest, I felt like it might explode. I couldn't even breathe properly, as though all the air in the room had been sucked out by this one single discovery. How could she do this to me? And worse, how could she do it with someone I'd always been uneasy about, but never had enough proof to confront her about? Until now, we had been together for just over a year. It wasn't a long time, but it felt like it was enough. The kind of relationship that you think is built on solid ground, until you realize it's anything but. We met at a friend's party, and everything just clicked. From that first night, it felt like we were on the same wavelength. We'd spend hours talking, laughing, sharing little details of our lives, our hopes, our insecurities. It felt like she was the one. At least, that's what I had convinced myself of. But over the past few months, things started to shift. It started with small things, texts that seemed too casual, too distant. Then there was the sudden, almost excessive need for space she kept mentioning. She'd tell me she was going to visit her friends or go out for girl time, but the whole thing fell off. She would come back later than she said she would, always with a rushed excuse or a vague answer about where she'd been. When I asked about it, she'd shrug it off with a smile, but the smile never quite reached her eyes. Then came the late-night phone calls. She'd always take them in the other room, even though she swore it was nothing. "It's just work," she'd say, "just catching up on things." But I didn't buy it. I knew there was someone else. Someone who was making her laugh in ways I couldn't anymore. I tried to ignore it, tried to chalk it up to paranoia, to insecurity. After all, who was I to question her loyalty? She always reassured me, told me how much she loved me, how I was the one who had her heart. She would tell me that she wanted a future with me, that I was the only one she could see herself with. "You're my person," she'd say, almost as if it was a given. But then came the things I couldn't ignore. The things I couldn't talk myself out of anymore. I saw the way her smile changed when his name came up. The way her eyes would brighten at the mention of his plans. And now this flight to a beach getaway with him. I felt nauseous. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the phone, trying to breathe, trying to calm myself down. I couldn't believe it was happening. I thought I had been imagining things, that I was being paranoid, but this was reality staring me in the face. The truth in black and white. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. I finally took a deep breath and shoved the phone into my pocket. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I had to process it, but I couldn't do it in the same room. I needed air, something to take my mind off the spiraling thoughts. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out the door, not knowing where I was going or what I was even trying to find. I walked for what felt like hours. The cool night air hit my face, but it didn't do anything to calm the storm inside me. The city lights blurred as I walked aimlessly, feeling like a shell of myself. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she was already planning a future with him, or the fact that I had been so oblivious to it all. I thought about all the times she'd said she was just friends with him. I thought about how she had acted when she was around him, how she would sometimes get these little smiles that didn't belong to me. Was I stupid for not noticing? Was I blind to the truth because I wanted to believe in something that wasn't there? I didn't know if I was angry, hurt, or just utterly broken. My mind kept racing, each thought leading to another, but none of them made any sense. How could someone who said I was their one, the person they wanted a future with, be planning a weekend getaway with their ex? It didn't add up. It felt like a betrayal of everything she had promised me. I ended up at the park near our apartment, sitting on a bench in the cold, staring at the stars that weren't even visible through the city's haze. It wasn't enough to distract me from the knot in my stomach. The next morning, I woke up to a message from her. "Hey, I know things have been tense lately. Can we talk later? I want to figure this out." I almost laughed at how casually she said that. Figure this out. As if I could just sweep everything under the rug and pretend nothing had changed. How could she think that we could just go back to the way things were? How could she be so oblivious to the gravity of what had happened? I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say? That I knew she was planning a trip with her ex? That I felt like an idiot for trusting her when all the signs were there? That the words she said to me last night, those sweet, loving words, meant absolutely nothing when she was already making plans with someone else? I wanted to scream. I wanted to send her everything I'd found, the flight details, the proof that she was already moving on, but I couldn't. I wasn't sure if I was ready for that confrontation. And part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know the truth, even if it meant losing her. But another part of me knew that I couldn't keep living in the lie. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. It felt like the moment where everything would change, where the truth would either tear us apart completely or force us to confront the reality that we weren't who we thought we were. I knew I had to talk to her. I knew I had to face it, even if I wasn't ready. But what if the truth was worse than what I imagined? What if I was already too late? I didn't have the answers. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over yet. Part 2. The next few hours were agonizing. I spent them staring at my phone, trying to think of what to say, how to word this conversation, but the words wouldn't come. Part of me wanted to just confront her, to demand answers right away, to expose her and hope she could explain herself. But another part of me, the one that was still holding on to that tiny thread of hope, was terrified of what I might hear. I finally decided to call her. I couldn't keep avoiding this. I couldn't let the silence fester any longer, because every minute I waited, it felt like I was sinking deeper into a hole that I couldn't climb out of. I needed to hear her voice, even if it meant hearing things I wasn't ready for. I dialed her number, and it rang for what felt like an eternity. When she finally picked up, her voice sounded too normal, too casual. "Hey," she said. "How's it going?" I could feel the cold in my chest, the weight of everything I was about to say hanging between us. My mind raced, but I just said the first thing that came out. "Kara, we need to talk." There was a slight pause on the other end of the line. Then she responded, a little more cautiously, "Okay, what's going on?" My heart was pounding now, my hands clammy. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that if I said the wrong thing, I would fall. I saw something. I started trying to keep my voice steady. A flight confirmation to a beach. With Alex. Her silence was deafening. It was as if she wasn't sure how to respond. The air between us felt heavy with everything unsaid, the distance suddenly too large to ignore. I felt myself getting angry, but I tried to keep it in check. This wasn't about blaming her. It was about understanding what was happening. "Chris, I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. But the apology didn't feel genuine. It felt rehearsed. I could feel the knot in my stomach tightening, but I pushed on. "You've been telling me how much you want to fix things, Kara. You've been telling me I'm the one. And then you book a flight to spend the weekend with him? I don't understand. What are you even doing? What is this?" There was another pause, this time longer. She sighed heavily, and I could hear her shift, like she was moving to a different space. I don't know what to say, she began slowly, her words uncertain. I know this looks bad, but it's not what you think. I felt a surge of frustration. Is what I think, Kara? You're making plans with him behind my back, and you're telling me that I'm the one? That you want to fix things? I was raising my voice without meaning to. I can't believe I'm even hearing this from you right now. What happened to the person I thought you were? Her voice cracked as she spoke again, a little more defensive now. It's not like that, okay? I swear. It's complicated, and Complicated? I cut her off. You've been telling me everything's fine. You've been acting like I'm the problem, that I'm the one pulling away, and all along, you've been planning this. I could hear her breathing heavily now. There was a long silence, and for a moment I thought she might just hang up. But then she spoke, her tone different. It wasn't the warm, reassuring tone I'd been used to. It was cold, almost detached. Chris, I've been confused, she admitted, her voice shaking just a little. I didn't know how to tell you. Alex and we've been talking a lot lately, and I guess I've just been trying to figure out my own feelings. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to explain what was going on with me. I didn't want to keep lying to you, but I wasn't ready to admit to myself what I was feeling. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. So what? You thought it was okay to go behind my back and make plans with him while still telling me you loved me? While still telling me I was the one? You've been lying to me this whole time. I wasn't lying, Chris, she said quickly, almost pleading. I didn't know what to do. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could work through it, but I've been feeling lost for a while now, and I don't know what to do anymore. I felt this overwhelming sense of disbelief washing over me. Lost. She was telling me she was lost, but it felt like I was the one who had been left behind. It felt like I'd been living in this false reality, this dream, while she was already starting to move on. The worst part? I wasn't sure if I could blame her. I wasn't sure if I could fault her for being confused, for needing to figure things out. But the way she went about it, hiding things from me, telling me lies, leading me on, was something I couldn't overlook. I stood there, speechless, letting her words hang in the air. She was still talking, but it felt like I was drowning in all the contradictions, the half-truths, and the unspoken pain. I didn't know how to be honest with you, she continued, her voice cracking more now. I didn't want to hurt you, but I see now that I've already done that. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Yeah, you have. You really have. The conversation dragged on for another 20 minutes, but I couldn't bring myself to listen anymore. There was nothing she could say that would make this better. Nothing that would undo the hurt, the betrayal, the confusion. By the time I hung up, I felt emptier than I ever had before. I stared at my phone for a long time, letting the silence sink in. She said she needed time to figure things out. But what did that even mean now? What was there to figure out? She had already made her choice. She was already emotionally invested in him again. I was just the guy who had been holding on to a relationship that was already slipping through my fingers. I sat on the couch for a while, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. My heart ached, but it wasn't just from the betrayal. It was from the realization that everything I thought we had, everything I thought she was a lie. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if there was a future for us or if this was the end. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep waiting around for someone who had already moved on. I had to let go. And as much as it hurt, as much as I wanted to keep fighting for something that wasn't there, I knew it was time to finally walk away. The next day, I moved her things out of our apartment. Every picture, every piece of clothing, every reminder of her that had once made this place feel like home. I packed it all into boxes, the weight of them heavier than I ever expected. And when I was done, I left them by the door, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I could move on too. But it didn't feel like moving on. It felt like letting go. And that was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do.